Welcome to Disruption Blueprint with Shannon Spotswood from RFG Advisory. In this podcast, we help advisors grow their net worth, build their businesses, and maximize their independence. We've built an award-winning platform with innovative technology, comprehensive service, and a team of individuals who are experts in their field to serve advisors. Join us for this journey where we explore everything that has to do with running an independent advisor practice as we bring together successful advisors, industry experts, and innovative minds who are on the bleeding edge to challenge the status quo, foster new ideas, and create a path for advisors to unleash their growth potential. Now, on to the show.
Hi, welcome to a very special episode of Disruption Blueprint. This is bound to be the most energy this little podcast studio will ever have.
Facts.
Financial advisor Dany Martin from Shreveport, Louisiana, WFA. Financial advisor Dave Pulcini with 6 points out of Rochester, New York. And my very own baby brother, Andrew Parrott. Social media, digital marketing guru, has absolutely nothing and knows absolutely nothing about money.
Absolutely nothing. Yeah. Welcome to the party.
I am so psyched you guys are here. This is a little bit impromptu. We're doing some big brainstorming about how to help advisors build billion-dollar brands on the back of marketing. And we thought, since we're all here, we might as well fire up the microphones and capture some magic. I want to start with one question, and that is the excuse epidemic. I think that financial advisors, for the most part, have not invested in their brands and in cultivating their personal brands because it's easy to say, compliance won't let me. It's an excuse. You all have taken a very different approach in thinking about, Dany, you're really an expert in digital media. Dave, you're really an expert in podcasting. So why did you realize that in order to grow your firms and serve your clients, and Dany, I'll start with you, that you needed to have a personal brand?
So I feel like there's no excuses, right? Only priorities. So I like to think of people use excuses sort of for a reason to not do something that they either don't want to or don't feel comfortable doing. So if you can't, like I couldn't be in Birmingham today because I have this, right? And I like to ask myself the same question. If my favorite aunt had just passed away and her funeral was today, would I be here, right? And so if the answer is yes, then that's a priority more than an excuse. So I tell people there's no excuses, only priorities. I also think that in our business, when you brand yourself, you put yourself out there. If you're not doing a good job and you really on the inside aren't honest with yourself about the job you're doing for your clients or for your firm or for yourself or your family, then why would I want to put it out there for everybody to see? Because you can brand it and you can market it and you can get all the attention, but when people start digging through the weeds of are you actually doing what you say you're doing, if you're not, and a lot of advisors aren't, then they don't want people to kind of see what they're doing. So that's maybe the excuse, in my opinion, is I don't really want all the attention because I'm maybe not doing the things that I should be.
What do you think?
I have to follow up with that, I guess. Good
luck.
I would say, Dany, the man. All right.
Bring the heat.
All right, so fine, I will. So if you can't do it, it's a real excuse. The excuse could be real, by the way. I was at a firm before, which we will leave unnamed, that literally would not allow some of the things that we're doing. And a lot of the big firms do. And Shannon says, I'm always recruiting. Maybe this is a recruiting speech. You have to make a change. If you want to do a podcast, you want to write a book, you want to do the PDFs and the white papers, you want to have your own custom website. And if they truly don't allow it, make a change.
Right.
Eliminate the excuse.
All right, so once you cross that threshold of I'm now in a place where I can develop my personal brand, why do you think it's so important for an advisor to invest the time and energy into creating a personal brand?
Well, if they want to grow, and it's an easy differentiator for most of the big firms, right? If you go back to my old firm or several of the big name firms that aren't allowed to do it, it's an instant differentiator as far as marketing goes. It also tries to communicate with the folks who know nothing about money, in a way that they understand and they want to be communicated with. And it's an easy way to get credibility, I guess, and gain
Dany,
credibility.
how would your clients describe your personal brand?
So I saw Counts earlier, and I basically, they think I'm just a good person. They just trust me, right? The content that I put out 99% of it is family oriented. It's me living my life. It's showing the story of, who I am. I feel like in our business, we've been taught to know your customer, know your client for our entire career, but don't let anybody know anything about, you don't need to know if I have a beer, if I drink, if I don't drink. You don't need to know how much money we make, how many kids I have, what kind of cars we drive. You don't need to know that, but I've got to know everything about you.
Right.
And I feel like the last couple of years, at least in the independent world, to grow your business, you don't have this pipeline of referrals coming in from either the bank or from an insurance company or something like that. So you have to create some sort of brand. And when we had our marketing coach, she said, a brand is just you telling your story to more people, not making up a story to then tell it to people. So if you have your own story and then you can tell that story, I feel like that to me is what branding is. But the number one thing my clients would say is, I feel like I trust him because he seems like a good person.
Yeah. They
what
feel
my
like
brand
they
is.
know you.
Well, they're
Yeah,
your
they know
friend,
me.
right?
Yeah.
We get that all the time.
How's the grandbaby?
Yeah,
I'm like,
your friend.
how do you even know I have a grandbaby? Oh, I saw your post on LinkedIn or whatever it might be,
Yeah.
right? So it's the trust thing.
Yeah.
All right. So there's about, the studies, it's hard to get really firm data, but basically they're saying that it's probably fewer than 2% of financial advisors have really invested in true branding and marketing and development of that persona. Andrew, in prep for our, how to build $1 billion brand boot camp, you've done some research and both, I'd say just as a consumer and as an expert in consumer-facing brands and helping them build some pretty gigantic, enormous names that we're all familiar with. What do you think about our industry in terms of from a branding and marketing perspective?
It's funny. I came into this. So it's been about a year. I've been looking at RFG from 3,000 feet up and really starting to dissect how it is that people are interacting with these brands and how are they looking. I come at everything looking at selling this concept and experience, right? Like at the end of the day, I'm selling this thing to be able to create essentially a visceral reaction within an audience all the time. If you're selling a widget or an experience to go see a theme park, right? I want to create a visceral, I need this. And when I looked at branding and marketing from a financial perspective, it was always this idea that these financial advisors, especially with the bigger firms, are almost reliant on the big dogs doing the heavy lifting, where they sit back and they're like, well, but I'm with. But don't you see my logo on my business card? And no one cares about it. I mean, the more that I was dissecting, because you talk to the financial advisor, but then I go talk to the person. Hey, okay, you're a client, you're with so-and-so, right? Yeah. Well, do you care who they're with? No, I really don't. It means nothing. And they're reliant on those sort of behemoths to do all the heavy lifting to make this impression on people. And so when I'm talking to financial advisors, I'm like, well, what are you doing for yourself? What do you mean? I've got a bank of things that I can pull from and I can throw. It's like, does that talk about you at all? Yeah. Who cares? It's just trash. And it's so funny because and I will hear almost across the board from every financial advisor that I was polling and working with during this, this period of time, just doing some due diligence and trying to get an idea. Because when you guys talk, I'm in a foreign land, but that's okay because I get the idea of how to create excitement with people, right? And every time that I'm talking to financial advisors, there is this well, they trust me, right? I get that. Oh yeah, that's why they stay with me. And it's yeah, but how are you creating that trust? Just because you're a good guy and you like to go fishing or you like to go out and do some fun things, what are you doing to really resonate with your audience to make them want to be a part of you and that you care about their money, right? Listen, we're talking about one of the most important things in people's lives, and you're not even taking the time and effort to talk about their life, right? One of the things I heard from a guy that I thought was great is, if I'm talking, I'm wasting my time. I need to hear what my clients are talking about, what my potential clients are doing. And I'm like, well, how are you doing that? He said, I haven't figured it out quite yet.
And he's been in business for 35 years.
That's right. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. You don't even I've got to go north, but I'm not sure where north is. My compass is broken. And I'm like, that's great. Let's talk about how we fix the compass.
Yeah.
because it's out there. I mean, there are no excuses, right? Like I hate those lines because there's an opportunity to take advantage of just create your brand. And maybe you don't want to be, the multimillionaire. That's okay. How can you be you? How can you have that authenticity that really drives people to go, okay, I trust you with my money, but give me more than that. Because there's 100 of those guys telling me that give me your money, it's going to be okay, right? Yeah. I want the people that care about who I am as a person and start to cultivate that dynamic, because then that leads us down a path where the idiot in me when it comes to finances starts to not feel like an idiot. Oh, wait, I'm part of this. All right, take me on a journey, like hold my hand, because I need those baby steps. And if you're going to just talk over my head, you've already lost me, right? Because my ego's not going to get in this game.
Do you think there's a difference in branding for like prospecting? So when you're trying to draw attention to what you do for someone who may not be looking versus branding for someone when they have a triggering event that they think of you as an advisor, right? So when I brand myself, I think of two ways to do it. I'm trying to let you know what I do in a way that I can help you, whatever that might look like. The second way would be when you have some life event happen and mom leaves you a bunch of money, you think, that guy on the computer that does something with money with that RFG group, something, and then you look me up, right? So there's, in my mind, two different ways to sort of put that information out there. And I think both are done a little bit different. Would you agree or disagree?
I think it's a combination. I think ultimately you have the first hand where you're doing the branding of this is who I am. You want to create those experiences, right? Because ultimately when those things happen, when those life events or those moments happen, it's hard in those times to go, oh, I remember that guy with RFG, right? But in the cultivation of that branding, when you're just constantly feeding those lines, don't forget when these life events that we talk about, it's not an if, it's a when, right? So we know we're going to experience them. And I think if you can start to create those events prematurely, it saves the hassle of having to, put out the fire. Like I like to be proactive rather than reactive with most of my marketing campaigns. And then ultimately, when you have those experiences, the sprinkler system's already set. We don't have to worry about it. Nothing's going to get damaged. We've got you, because I've already started those conversations, not only in their mind, but on the forefront. And I don't think it takes having a client sitting at your desk and you've got their money in the bank to have those conversations. Like let's be authentic, let's get real and start to create those evangelists within the community to start talking about you and your brand.
Raving fans.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing that I have found. I look for similarities within market spaces and being able to determine what are they doing that's working or where's everyone failing, right? Because if we can figure out that everyone's not doing something, then we can be disruptors. And that's where it gets super sexy. And, I think that, I look at churches and I look at financial advisors very similar. Like I love my church. It's a great place to go and I'm there every Sunday and we're having a great time. But if I feel like I want to tell someone about it, there's all of a sudden a weird moment that happens.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to tell, okay, do you have your church? Okay, well then have fun, be there. And I think financial advisors are in that same space, which is, I think you have a lot of people that really cheer you on and are like, you're the best. But it's a hard thing when you're sitting at the dinner table with friends to say, hey, have you ever thought about talking to, right?
Did you take your RMD this year?
Yeah, I love all these
Super
words.
fun dinner party.
Like before this podcast even started, I hear all these acronyms. I'm like, oh, I'm such a nerd. I don't know any of this lingo. You guys are so like in that different smart space. But you're right. I mean, but how do you have that conversation to where I am going to talk to you about my guy because I trust him? And that's going out on a ledge, right? It's,
Okay, so let me interject there because I think this is an interesting point about brand development for an advisor, is that if the advisor's brand is out there and it's very values-led, so your brand is, here I am with my family and here's what I'm doing in my community and here are all the passions that I have, So that is something where the bridge is much easier to cross in terms of talking about it with your friends. It's not so much about money. It's talking about like, oh, I was just at the Pink House with Danny eating some vegan food at his wife's, restaurant Well Fed next door. And there were all these cool, NFL players' jerseys on the wall. So now I'm telling a story about my financial advisor that has nothing to do with my RMD or money or how much I make or what he's really done for me financially. So how, I think that's such a big part of how do advisors really shift, and I'm going to kick this to you, how do advisors shift their mindset where they get comfortable exposing their true authentic selves?
I think it's easy. First of all, going back to the 2% thing, like you said, 2% of people are doing it. Yeah. That's crazy. So that gap is going to close. So I would recommend getting ahead of it as fast as possible because it's going to happen. The other thing we talked about was the big companies. I think you said it was they keep doing the same canned content. Yeah. That's probably because that's all they allow, just so you know. Because they don't want their advisors running out doing all these one-off things, posting their kids and other things because it's the lowest common denominator. I don't want some person screwing it up.
You know what I think it is? I actually think it's more sinister. They don't actually own, exactly. Yeah. They don't want their advisor to own that relationship. The second I have a more personal connection with you, I'm tied to you, not the logo on the wall.
Yep. So that's right on. So that gives me a sense of urgency by itself. For sure. What was the question again? I forgot what you even asked.
We're also like...
You guys are all staring at me.
Oh my God.
People listening to this. For the listeners, I have eyeballs on me. Wide open eyeballs and 9 cups of coffee right now.
I know.
I don't know what it is, but let's do it.
They gave me water. I'm like, I don't even know what this is. It's killing me. Like, where's my coffee
You're like,
cup?
I flew through a snowstorm to get here.
I forgot what the question was.
Like, I'm going to rip off my shirt.
Personal brand. How does an advisor start a personal brand?
How does an advisor kind of expose their authentic self?
Well, they just be themselves. What's the saying? Everyone else is taken.
Okay, so talk about how you created your podcast.
I hired a company that helped.
Proudmouth, shout out.
Yeah, they are.
Love you guys.
Yeah, they're awesome. So I literally get on a microphone and we talk about topics, and then they do everything else. And this is not an advertisement for Proudmouth, but it is very helpful when the advisor can go in, do the topics, and then send it out. But I think for us... But
why did you think anyone gave a crap about what you had to say about a topic?
I still don't think they do.
So then why are you doing it?
So exactly. For credibility, and I use it for certain things. Like if I'm at your dinner table, I'm not going to talk about the financial advisor, but I'd say, hey man, this guy just proactively sent me this podcast. Now you're thinking about me. I've got some credibility. We sound like we're famous on a podcast, right?
Is that before or after you asked me what it's going to look like when I'm dead?
Yeah.
Yes, that's in the podcast. That's 30
what
seconds
will they find
when?
What would they find?
I'm just trying to figure out what that linear
Yeah.
progression is.
So you get a lot of
That's a great question,
stuff.
by the way.
Yeah. We'll talk about that later. That's a commercial in the podcast.
So
For those
the
listening,
commercial, what's the name of your podcast and where can I find it?
It's called Dear Rochester, Retire Well.
How good is that
You
title?
should start
Love
Dear
it.
Shreveport.
It's like Dear.
That's strong.
Exactly. I mean, we've talked about this.
That's super strong.
It should be a Dear, like every city.
So we've started talking about the podcast. Everybody says, you messaged us the other day, do you have any good podcasts to listen to? I think one reason to do podcasts is you can say, I actually have one. Right. Not,
guys, it's huge.
I listened to this one or here. That's why Chase responded with, have you heard of the Warrior Advisor podcast? And he sent her the episode with us on it. That was our response was, actually we have one. And we just tested it out on her, who was in the podcast. But for you, I think it's, actually we do. I have a podcast that's got how many episodes?
Just the 50th one came out yesterday.
Just that one, so to your question, because we all like to talk, the Client Primacy book by Eaton Vance talks about chance encounters. So I do agree with you're not just going to start talking about RMDs, but while we're watching the Super Bowl and the commercial comes up about, are you protected in retirement? It's as simple as one of those moments where somebody goes, man, the market's crazy. And your response is, I know, but man, my advisor, I'm all the time, they're reaching out. Right. Oh, well, mine's not. Who is it? And it's in that moment where that referral happens. It's not like a thing that person has to come out and try to promote, so that the client primacy, where you only focus on your client, almost like a doctor as a fiduciary, right? Yeah. You focus on your client, leads to that chance encounter where that referral happens in that moment. And we've done it with the Pink House. They'll say, man, who decorated this? And in that moment, we, without knowing, refer the decorator to that person who asked about it, because we have such conviction of what it looks like and the job we're doing. So it doesn't come across as this intimidating referral. It's that you just don't want them to go, oh yeah, the market does suck right now, right? And just go about to the next conversation. You want them to say, yeah, it is crazy, but let me tell you, I'm not concerned because, we get these videos from Rick or whatever it might be. You know what I mean? So I don't know what the videos say. And so I feel like that chance encounter too is another reason to just.
It is. And it's part of a proactive communications calendar, which people are using now. So if they get a podcast every 2 weeks, automatically sent in the email. We by the way, we can track it. We can see who's listening. We can see who's opening those emails. Also, we do a proactive monthly video on 12 different topics. And all you have to do is Google top questions asked to financial advisors. And then you answer that question on a freaking video that's 30 seconds long, not boring, hopefully.
Yeah.
And again, you can see who's watching it. And one by one, we just start to place the podcast thing into people's minds, meaning like, I'm telling you, my clients think that I'm famous. If they're listening, they think I'm famous right now anyway. It's just funny. It's an instant credibility because you have a podcast with some music at the beginning and the end. And a 14-minute disclosure, by the way.
Right.
So fast forward through the end. But the best benefit of the podcast so far, guys, is that my wife actually listened to it, and I've been doing this for 20 years, and she said, I had no idea you knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
So as long as my wife is on board, we're good.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
do you think the podcast market is saturated? I know you live in kind of the YouTube world.
Absolutely.
Is it saturated to a point where it's not worth doing?
Not at all. Not at all. I think it's incredible. I mean, so we're always planting seeds and waiting for those seasons to happen where things are going to grow. And sometimes those seasons take a long time. And I'm a data nerd. I have super smart people that actually delineate what all the data means at times. But we have graphs and everything of every client that's going on. And it's interesting because we talk about like who opened it, who read it, how long did they watch, what was that CTA, that call to action, what are we trying to actually inspire in all of these things that we're doing. But don't ever discount the fact that even if they're just getting their email, I can tell you that we see so much traction even from deleted emails when your subject's right. Because you can tell a story even, I don't need to listen to your email, I'm not going to listen to your podcast. I'm too busy, right? But when I see it come through and it's got a solid tagline that resonates, it's a little seed, right? Oh,
8
delete.
seconds.
That's it. There's value in even the data that shows it didn't work. And I think that's far too often not looked at and given value to. Where are we spinning all of these things? What's the why behind it, right? What's the why? What are we trying to accomplish? And if those things have applicability in those spaces, great. Let's cheerlead that on. And how do we determine what's failing, right? Like fail fast. And I'm a big believer in that. Try it all. Go. Like, let's go. But when those things don't work, don't hesitate to jump off that boat because it's sinking, right? I see that all the time. We're just dumping money into projects and agendas and marketing, and everyone's screaming this isn't working, but they're so invested.
Okay, so let's talk about that because this is one of the things.
Sounds like a stock position.
Right, totally.
That's what I was gonna say.
There's a bias for that.
Full tilt.
Somebody get me Rick Waddell. There's a bias for that. There's a study behind that. But this is this is also, I would say, almost the second obstacle that advisors have to overcome in investing their time and energy and treasure into building their brand and their marketing. Number one is compliance won't let me do it. Number two is really like, show me the ROI. The number of times I have that conversation, show me the ROI. And it's like, you can't have last dollar attribution. You cannot, you will never, I don't care how good your dashboard is, you will never be able to point to that client and say, you know what? Camilla Parrott is now my client because she listened to my podcast. No, Camilla Parrott's going to have the market commentary from Rick. She's going to have attended a Stronger Money event. She's going to see a YouTube video. She's going to have looked at some social media. Like, you have no idea what that last mile is. And for advisors, that is kryptonite. I can't quantify my return on investment. So you know what I'm going to do? Not.
Right. Imagine not having any of those things and trying to compete with it.
What if you back up like 2 years? You can quantify it. I think the longer the time goes, you can quantify it.
Okay,
right?
so you go because you're living it right now.
So we're 2 years in on a marketing budget that's probably our second largest expense
after salaries
per month. So salary, rent, and then marketing is our largest budget for 2 years. and our business has consistently grown 20%. Net income's grown. We've been able to manage the balance. Like, the business itself is healthy. The clients and the referrals that we're getting now are more in our target market. So more athletes, more women, more blue collar millionaires, which is who we focus on. It's taken 2 years to go, oh, wait, here's the expense that went out and here's the revenue that came in. Maybe it's coincidence, but maybe it's not. So I think the longer you go out, you can quantify it.
Do you ask? Do you ask when you get a new client, like, what
did
this come from, or do they come in and tell you?
So I just say, how did you hear about us? And most of the time, the clients will say, hey, I sent your name to this person, or they'll reach out. It's the first thing they say. We don't get a whole bunch of walk-ins. I don't get a bunch of cold leads. It's a lot of, solid referrals. So we know most of the time. Back to you've got to have some substance. I feel like a lot of the marketing too of me personally, maybe your podcast, maybe my family life and things that we do leads to, but I also have this incredible machine behind me. So I'm a good person, but let me show you what's behind it. Let me show you the Harvard and Stanford, and let me show you our administrative team with 20 years experience, and let me show you all the things that we do. It opens the door for me to then talk about my business. Honestly, I am more in Shreveport to the random person. Me and Lindsay own WellFed. A lot of people don't even know that I do financial planning.
Good branding.
It's that. So
they think you're a vegan restaurant owner.
I'm wearing a shirt, right? But it leads.
Sponsored by WellFed.
It leaves that door open to say, hey, well, no, we don't need every single. We're just focused on what I'm not trying to get every single client. And they go, oh, well, how long have you? And then it just leads down that road to show all the things and meet the team and all the stuff like that. So it's an open door to the next room.
Have you tracked metrics on that?
No.
So I mean, like the growth and people watching, listening, whatever. No,
we send it out and we roll with it. Now, don't ears closed to this side of the table, but we just, we have a marketing plan. We meet every week to discuss that plan, but the content itself is very on the fly, spur of the moment. I do it, I put it out, and I forget about it. And that collectively, if you do it consistently, reaps rewards at some point in the future. But I don't ever really think I'm going to do this. But what's
interesting in terms of your data, in a down tape, right, a down 20+% market, you're seeing up, double-digit growth, both top line and bottom line.
Absolutely.
So, I think to your point, tying that back to 2 years of significant investment. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars that you've invested in your brand. So it's not something that advisors can say, oh, I'm going to, and I love all of these, we love all of our marketing people. Obviously, we're biased to Pathfinder that we've built on the FMG chassis. But I think that advisors look at this and they're like, okay, I am reticent to spend $600 a month for a fill in the blank, or I'm not going to spend $1,200, or I'm not going to spend $2,000. It's like, buckle up, baby. Get ready to spend $40,000 or $50,000.
Is that excuse number 2?
Yeah.
Compliance, then money, right? It's got to be.
I think it's number 3: compliance, time,
and
then money.
You have to invest before you grow, though. So if you can't grow your business by saving money.
You can't.
You can grow it in the short term, but you can't grow it long term by just saving money. You have to spend.
Okay, so I want to, and we don't have to name names, we won't name drop, but you work with some very famous YouTubers that a lot of the teenagers know of.
I'm kind of a big deal in small circles.
Just ask me.
Just ask.
They're obviously I don't even know, they're like branding juggernauts.
Absolutely.
How do they, we're sitting here having the conversation that you'd expect financial people to be talking about. ROI, and I'm spending tens of thousands of dollars on marketing. All right, put it humble us.
Oh, yeah. There is when we're talking about time, energy, effort, and money, it's ridiculous what goes into the process to make those things happen, right? And then you look at the final product and it looks like you've got a guy with a cell phone running around just taking silly videos, right? But the process to make all that happen, the marketing, the branding, the effort, the time, it's insane. They look like kids just having fun. It's a full-time job, and they understand what it takes to make those things happen.
How big is their team doing that? How much money are we talking gets spent in creation of that spontaneous teenage content?
Millions.
How did they get started?
Well, it starts, when you talk about when did it get started or how it got started, you're going back into, 2007, right? With a kind of just a silly camera and making some weird content.
I mean, the person getting started, right? Like,
yeah,
if I want to start my own YouTube with 40 million followers tomorrow, like, how do you even start?
Right. Well, and I think you hit and I don't know if it was before we started rolling or not, but a lot of it is being yourself. I mean, the ones that make it, the guys that I work with, I always get the question, what's it like working with so-and-so? How are they really like? And I'm like, they're just like their video.
Right.
That's who they are.
Authentic self.
Yeah. It's authentic, 100%. Yeah. And because if you can, and that's where I think you have those obstacles when you talk about, financial advisors, but it's not just that. It's everyone getting into this social game because we have to get kind of vulnerable. Like, do I really want you to know who my authentic self is? I mean, scratch the surface of this guy and you're going to find all kinds of brokenness, right? But I've figured out a way to live my life in a way that I really kind of embody it. I just embrace the suck. Like, yeah, I'm broken. Let's be broken together, right? And too many people, when you're in, again, I'm going to use that social space because it's where authentic self comes out. Because to try to make a magazine article that makes you seem authentic, it's always, it's a little fake, right?
Yeah.
So when you get in there and you're talking to someone that wants to create a brand and they're saying, well, what is my brand? I get that question all the time as well. And it's like, well, let's have that. We turn into counselors, right? Like, let's talk about you. Let's find the broken, because that's what people resonate with.
Right.
We were just talking about me switching financial advisors. Shout out to David. And
that's me.
It's not. And I think, the thing that made me switch was because I got to see an authentic human being that wasn't just wanting to talk about things that went right over my head. He started speaking to me like a human being. And I was like, oh, I've never had that happen before in this environment. Let's go. And so, to answer your question, as far as YouTubers, there's a lot of luck in it. I mean, as far as doing the right things at the right time and hitting that audience, right? Like audience. If you're a financial advisor or anything, you've got to know who you're going after, because that's where your superpower lies, right? Like, I can speak to these people and not look fake. I can be this human being, and people are going to go like, oh, I want more of that.
Isn't
right?
that, there's so much insight in that, because our industry is like, who's your client? Anyone with money?
Oh, yeah. It's just trash.
Well, we get it in niches all day too. But Shannon's question was, how much are they? So they weren't spending millions before they got going?
No. So before they got, it's
start?
authentic. And then, but then you've got to get big, right? So now the dollars start rolling. But you've got to factor in everything. Now your production costs are huge because you've always got to be better or at least as good as your last video.
Yeah.
Because people are quick to turn you off. And I think that's what everyone has to remember. If you're not in that grind, if you're not willing to keep going forward, it's so easy now to turn you off. Right? Because there's so much noise.
Swipe.
Absolutely. And so if all of a sudden I'm going to stop sending my podcast, you're not going to get those emails. And all of a sudden, I'm not going to start putting out this content. I'm not going to, then everyone forgets you in a heartbeat, because we're all just squirrels running around like crazy. And so those millions of dollars that go into the production, the flights, the crews, collaborating with other people, right? Like, how much money is it going to take for you to say my name on your place, and I'm going to say it to you? It's, that's just a byproduct of success, right? I know bloggers that are making a good living, and they don't, they're able to wing it, and they're doing okay. But once you get to that next level, it becomes
it's a full-time job.
It's a full-time. Oh.
How many people are not just social media influencer, like making their money from social media, versus using social media as a platform to drive people to their business?
Oh, the big question of like, what about that guy who's got 1 million, 5 million, 10 million likes? Oh yeah, they're broke.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no one cares. Yeah, they looked at your stuff and they clicked it. But because all of those entities and those media out there, they figured it out. There was a time where enough likes, enough hearts, thumbs up, whatever you say, equated to dollar signs. It's just not the case anymore. Yeah. So to answer your question, those affiliates, those ancillary, those sponsorships, the ability to lock in your brand with other brands, that's where revenue streams start to happen. I think that's where the financial advisors, it's always they want to stay in their corner, right? Like, we're just going to talk about money. It's all about money.
Yeah.
And you talk about money with me, I'm like, I've got nothing for you because you've already bored me, right? But and so how do we start to find those brands? Because when I say be authentic self, your authentic self resonates with other brands, right? Like we all like our stuff. We do things. And when you start to collab with those brands, almost like, YouTubers, right? Now you've got an opportunity to align yourself with cool things, and that will bring your audience to you. They'll want to be a part of you. You become the cool kid in that circle, right? And I think that's where so often right now we have too many people that are just sitting on the sidelines waiting for XYZ to do the heavy lifting, and that's not their job. Their job is to make them look good, not you, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it's a fun environment to get in, and there's so many opportunities to leverage. I mean, it's not just a podcast. It's not just what's the brand? Like, what's my look? How do I want to be? Right? And you see that in the good brands that we all know, you know who they are. You know their audience, right? And it's super fun.
It's defined. It's intentional.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to wrap up really quick. Before we do, you talked about, failing fast. And I think one of the true benefits, and you certainly having just affiliated with RFG in August, coming from a restrictive environment where my name is no, my sign is no, my number is no, as it relates to marketing, and now wide open world with, compliance, call out to compliance, right? We all have our guardrails. But Dany, I want to talk about this new playbook that you've created for the cameras, the new playbook you've created, because it stemmed from a conversation. You're starting to do a lot of work as a firm with athletes. Louisiana is growing some of the top talent in the WNBA and the NBA and the NFL, certainly at the college football level, kind of across the board. You've got some incredible athletes coming out of Louisiana. And you and your partner Chase are young for the industry. They're attracted to you. You're building something really special. And the idea was like, how do you, to your point, you start talking numbers to me and I'm immediately shutting down. Like, I'm worried about am I going to get to stay on the team? Am I number 53? Do I get a play? Yeah. Not, show me how to build a diversified investment portfolio. So I want you to talk about just that. How do advisors get out of their way? How do they throw things on a whiteboard and go literally from a whiteboard session to a Canva to a printed document to sitting next to a woman on a phone and basically landing a new client on a plane?
So this literally is a whiteboard experience. And so the way that this came about is it's not just the athletes. The athletes that we have become friends with, they're just young with money or potential to make money. So it's not that they're athletic, it's that they're younger people that have the potential to make money. And those people, to your point, they're young. They're trying to raise a family. They're trying to either run a business. They're trying to, perfect their craft. They're trying to stay on the team. They're trying to make it to the next level. They're in the gym. They're practicing. They're doing things like that. And so they don't really care about the money part. That's what we do. And so the Pink House, we started having discussions around, like, what are your values? We've got one of our athletes, I won't say who he or she is, and I said, you're the best at your craft. You are. You have literally been named the best athlete in your craft in the country. And he or she basically said, I just want to be rich. I'm like, oh, that's different than I want to be the best athlete. So you want to create a platform to then leverage your platform to do something bigger than just sports, right? So we started talking about, what are your values? Like, who do you want to be? What do you want people to think about you? What will they find when you die?
Love
right?
it. Love it.
All right, we're going round robin on that.
So and then it just goes into like, who are your professional relationships? Who do you have in your corner? Who's your CPA? Who's your attorney? Well, I don't have one. Well, then you need one. So that's the second part, right? Who's your trainer? Who's your nutritionist? Then it gets into, where's your income? What are your expenses? And then it gets to the back page, which is really, I think, the most important for at least someone who is I mean, younger, older, whatever it might be, who are your starting 5? Like who is the 5 closest people in your circle, because they will influence you. You will become an average of who they are, whether it's your income, whether it's your personality, whether it's if you want to be a car thief, hang around a bunch of car thieves, you'll learn how to do it. If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, find 5 entrepreneurs, right? But more than that is, who do you need to bench, right? So who are the 5 people in your life that take. You love them all the same. They're still there. Might be your spouse, right? I mean, you don't know, right? They're great people, but every time they reach out to you, they want something. They're not on your side. And so we have to be aware of like, hey, you have made it. You are successful. You are the best in your business. You just got to be aware of who those people are that are influencing you in the right direction, but also they're kind of sucking the life out of you as well. And that really came from just a whiteboard discussion, and now into we're using it for, our older retirees are like, wait, I can use this too, so it's sort of a whirlwind thing, but it's been fun to.
So how did it manifest where you're flying over here this morning, you're on a 6 a.m. flight out of Shreveport, and you're landing in Atlanta with basically a woman, who wants to be a client?
Honestly, 6 a.m. flight. We've got about an hour and a half to Atlanta, and where you going as a business, but the same old conversations on the airplane. And, I just told her where I was heading, what we were doing, and, started talking about financial planning. And so I just, whipped out the book, and I said, this is just something that we use, and started talking to her about her, her values, and not in a format where I had a pen and paper. I didn't whip out my computer and start showing her standard deviations and stuff. But it was just, I don't even know if I opened the book. It was really just, having it in my hand and having her answer questions about herself. And we went through about 30 minutes. And when she got off the plane, we were getting up, and she goes, well, this is not what I expected on a 6 a.m. flight. It's the most informative flight I've ever had. And I've got a lot of thinking to do on my next one, because she was talking about like, who's her closest 5 influences? Like, she's never thought about that, right? And so she just said, I'll be in touch. Now, whether she is or she isn't, I don't know, but she will be a better person now than she was 2 hours ago, because in her mind, she's maybe created this web of people that make her better. And that's what we're trying to do.
Danny's new marketing plan is flying around on airplanes. Podcast
So I used to
called
write
Finance on a Plane.
So I used to do thank you notes, right, on airplanes. So I would just
I remember that.
Every airplane I'd write, hey, thank you to the pilot for getting us there. You're probably away from your family. Your notes on what's going on in your life. Everybody's complaining because we're late. We didn't get here on time. The flight was bumpy. I just want to say thank you for getting me to my destination. Yeah. And I would just put a business card in. I did it until, it worked too much that we just stopped doing it. But that was, that was another thing that we used to do on airplanes. So anyway, that's a real life story from this morning.
We could literally do this all day. All right, you got to run your question all around the horn here.
Start with him.
This is
Well, I have several of these.
So this is one of your best questions that you ask on Dear Rochester Retire Well. Mm-hmm. Your podcast that we love, that we're gonna basically develop. Can we we need all of the URLs on that. We should start URLing Dear whatever city Retire Well.
Problem is on it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get it. Okay, so you've got a question though that you always ask that we're going to end this.
Well, we've got an ad in it's like 30 seconds in, and it's like 5 questions that I thought hit home and make somebody it's not numbers, it is financial stuff, but it is things that make you think. And the one that you guys are talking about is if you were not here tomorrow, what would they find? Meaning like where's all your stuff? How would they find it? Is it organized? Right? So that's it. What would they find?
So we're going to take it in a different direction. Like, let's get a little bit more like, what would they find?
What would they? Yeah, I know, because I take that so internally. I mean, if it comes to the financial side of it,
just call my wife.
Yeah,
she's an accountant.
That's exactly it. I have no idea. If we both die, it's a treasure hunt. But what would they find? Like, and I think they would find a person that definitely was trying. I guess I don't know where he'd find it. And now I'm in the financial space and I'm stuck on just talk to my wife. They would, but from a more they would find a legacy of someone that definitely earned his scars and has rode not the normal path in life. And I think that's where my finances have gone as well, where it's not been the trajectory that one would think. And my life and lineage has always shown that everything I do is not about me, it's about us. It's about what can we do, right? Because we are really strong. I'm broken. I'm lost. I'm scared. I don't know which way is up, but we are a powerhouse. And I think that we thing is my lineage. And that's, we as a father, as a husband, as a friend, or just a guy walking in this space, on this life journey. That's where I find strength, in strangers and in people that I love.
So even the non-financial guy doesn't even answer it financially. In my brain, I'm like, where's the life insurance policy, man? Where's the bank account?
I never even, and so I'm an advisor. I'm an advisor, and I never, when you ask that question, what will they find when you die? Not one time in my head did I think,
I'm
money.
like, where's your, if I die,
Me
pack
neither.
it.
Not
all
one
my
time.
Stuff? Where's my
I was
estate
about
plan?
to cry and get emotional about families and
Exactly,
and you're like, no, where's your life insurance policy? I'm like, oh, it's in the
Maybe,
desert.
I'm the one with issues.
Right.
Then.
I'm pretty sure in my journal there's some kind of will. I don't know.
That's the question, guys. That's
crazy.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah. And it's interesting because all three of us went to.
I never went. And so to answer your question,
100%.
I will answer your question because this is a good financial planner answer. So our our office manager of 20 years passed away in February 2022. And I've been in the business since 2006. I'm a planner, and we do all these retirement plans and this and that. So what would they find if I die? About 2 months ago, 100%. I've got 2 trusts, one for my kids, one for my grandchildren. I've got enough life insurance to cover my wife. I've got my will done. I got my medical directive done. I've got all of my stuff. If I die today, I know tomorrow that my wife and my family is set. That wasn't the case 2 months ago. You're talking about 15 years in the business.
Wow.
And so financially,
That's the question.
Financially,
so
I
good.
know 100% that if that plane crashes tomorrow, my family is set. Yep. Now, what else will they find is that's a deep question. That's the deep one that I thought you were asking.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like it.
I've got my kids have to do a scavenger hunt.
Great. That means I'm
you know
like-
what asset map is, right? Like
The
asset
safari.
map stuff.
I'm the safari leader.
Asset map.
Yeah.
Look at the asset map thing, and are your beneficiaries? That's the point of the question.
Call
That's
Amanda or call Nicole in my office, and they'll tell you where everything is of mine.
Wow.
This is, and we'll wrap it up here. This is a campaign that I want to run for 2023, which is really creating whether it's a little booklet or a card or something that advisors can have the conversation with their clients and say, we want to do an outreach campaign to your beneficiaries, just with here's our office, here's my picture, here's how they get in front of me. So when something happens to you, if something happens to you, they can pull out that card and know to call me, and I'll fix it. I'll make it better. I'll help in the way that I can. I won't be able to ease all the grief, but we obviously lost our stepfather of 30 plus years last October, and I remember him saying to me, if anything happens to me, all of our wills and documents and everything you need is in the bottom right-hand drawer in the first folder. And sure enough, right there.
Yep.
It was one of the most comforting moments of my life. It was such a powerful testimony to the importance of let's get organized.
Man, you guys are all talking about the personality issues with it. I'm talking about where's the stuff?
I'm thinking about I got it all, family and love, and what are they going to find in my phone? All the goals I want to achieve. It's going to get deep in there.
A hella clean car and a nice put together kitchen, and the dishes will be in the dishwasher. They won't find a whole bunch of bad stuff.
You're gonna crack into that cell phone.
That's a great line, though.
Yeah.
Because the moment they don't talk about
y'all.
nerdy numbers.
Disruption Blueprint. This was probably one of the most fun times we'll ever have. I love you all. Thank you for being here.
This
is awesome.
Awesome. So good.
Thank you for listening to the Disruption Blueprint podcast. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.rfgadvisory.com or schedule a call on our Advisor Resources page. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Information here may be provided in part by third-party sources. These sources are generally deemed to be reliable. However, neither our guest nor RFG Advisory guarantee the accuracy of third-party sources. The views expressed here are those of our guest. They do not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, its employees, or its clients. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by RFG Advisory or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Securities offered by registered representatives of Private Client Services, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. Private Client Services and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place. RFG Advisory is an SEC-registered investment advisor. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of RFG by the Commission, nor does it indicate that RFG or any associated investment advisory representative has attained a particular level of skill or ability.